Every man has experienced this moment, even if he didn't recognize it at the time. Everything feels fine. The conversation is flowing. The interest seems real. And then suddenly, something shifts. She becomes distant. She challenges you. She says something sharp, dismissive, or confusing. And without realizing it, you fail. Not because you said the wrong thing, but because you revealed the wrong emotional position. This is what most men never understand. Women are always testing men, not consciously, not maliciously, not to manipulate, but to answer one question their nervous system must resolve before attraction can deepen. Can this man remain himself when pressure appears? That's it. Every test reduces to this. And once you understand that, tests stop feeling threatening. They become predictable. Here's the uncomfortable truth. Women don't test men to see how clever they are. They test men to see how stable they are. Most men think tests are about confidence. They're not. They're about emotional sovereignty. A test is any moment where uncertainty is introduced. Distance, disagreement, withdrawal, challenge, teasing, disrespect masked as humor. These moments are not random. They are diagnostic. They exist to observe one thing. Does this man collapse, chase, explain, or become reactive? Or does he remain centered? Most men fail tests not because they lack value, but because they try to pass. Trying reveals need. Need collapses position. Position determines attraction. This is why men who overthink tests always lose. They look for the right words, the clever comeback, the dominant response, and in doing so, they reveal fear of losing approval. Fear is felt instantly, and fear is the only thing a test is truly measuring. Another uncomfortable truth is this: women do not test men they don't care about. No test means no investment. Testing is attention, but attention with pressure, and pressure reveals structure. This is where men misunderstand everything. They think passing tests means being dominant, or being funny, or being indifferent. None of those are the answer, because tests are not about behavior. They are about internal reaction. The moment a woman tests you, her nervous system is watching how you regulate yourself. Do you rush to fix tension? Do you seek reassurance? Do you explain yourself? Do you change tone? Do you become defensive? All of these signal instability, and instability activates the fear response. This is why men who argue fail tests. Men who justify fail tests. Men who try to impress fail tests. Men who try to control fail tests. Because all of those behaviors are reactions, and reactions mean loss of center. Another truth most men never hear is this: women test men when attraction is present. Tests are not obstacles, they are gateways. They appear when things matter. This is why tests often happen right after good moments, right after intimacy, right after closeness, right after connection. Because closeness triggers the question: will this man stay solid now, or will he collapse into need? Another uncomfortable realization is that tests are not designed to be passed verbally. They are passed energetically. What you feel matters more than what you say. If you feel calm, grounded, and unthreatened, the test passes, even if your words are simple. If you feel anxious, defensive, or eager to fix things, the test fails, even if your words are perfect. Another deep truth is this: women test men to see who leads emotionally, not who dominates, who leads themselves. Leadership here means emotional self-command. The man who can sit inside discomfort without trying to escape it signals strength. Strength removes fear. Fear blocks attraction. This is the mechanism. Another uncomfortable truth is that tests increase when a woman is unsure about your emotional stability. If she senses inconsistency, tests escalate. Not because she wants drama, but because she needs clarity. Clarity of safety. Another layer most men never see is this. Women test men more when men hide their center. Men who perform confidence but don't possess it get tested harder because performance feels fragile. Fragility activates caution. Another uncomfortable realization is that tests are not personal. They are biological. They exist to protect. Protect against emotional collapse. Protect against choosing wrong. Protect against instability. This is why women often say things they don't fully mean during tests. They are not expressing truth. They are creating pressure. Pressure reveals truth, and what pressure reveals determines everything. Another truth is this. Men who understand tests stop reacting emotionally. They stop taking things personally. They stop defending their worth because they realize something important. The test is not about the woman, it's about you and yourself. Can you stay grounded? Can you stay amused? Can you stay unaffected? Can you stay whole? This is why men who pass tests don't feel like they're passing anything. They're just being themselves. And that's the key. The one way to pass every test is not a technique. It's not a line. It's not a frame. It's non-reactivity rooted in self-trust. And once you understand this, tests lose their power. They stop being threats. They become confirmations. Confirmations that you are not losing yourself for approval, that you are not negotiating your center, that you are not outsourcing your stability. This is the foundation. Because once you see tests clearly, you stop fearing them. And when you stop fearing them, you stop failing them. Not by trying harder, but by staying grounded. And that is where everything begins to change.
Once you stop seeing tests as traps, you start seeing their pattern. Tests always appear when emotional stakes rise, when attraction deepens, when intimacy increases, when investment begins forming. That's when her nervous system needs confirmation. Not confirmation that you like her, but confirmation that you won't lose yourself because of her. Most men fail right here because they mistake emotional pressure for a problem. They rush to solve it, and in doing so, they reveal exactly what the test is looking for: a lack of internal stability. Here's the truth most men never hear. A woman does not test a man to see if he can make her feel good. She tests to see if she can feel safe letting go. Letting go emotionally, letting go of control, letting go of constant vigilance. And safety does not come from reassurance. It comes from witnessing composure. Another uncomfortable truth is this. The moment you feel the urge to explain yourself, you are already failing the test. Explanation signals threat perception. Threat perception signals insecurity. Insecurity activates fear. Fear shuts down attraction. This is why men who over-communicate fail so consistently. They believe clarity will help, but clarity delivered from fear does the opposite. Another layer most men don't recognize is that tests often arrive disguised as disrespect. A sharp comment, a dismissive tone, a challenge to your values, a comparison to another man. These are not insults, they are pressure points. Pressure points exist to observe one thing. Do you react emotionally? Anger fails, defensiveness fails, sarcasm fails, withdrawal fails, because all of them signal loss of center. The man who passes does something far simpler. He does not change. His tone stays the same, his posture stays the same, his emotional state stays the same. That consistency answers the test instantly. Another truth is this. Women test men more intensely when men attempt to control outcomes. Control creates tension. Tension creates resistance. Resistance invites testing. Men who surrender outcome control experience fewer tests because surrender signals abundance. Abundance feels safe. Another uncomfortable realization is that tests are not about winning,
They are about not losing yourself. Men who try to dominate tests feel aggressive. Aggression feels unsafe. Men who try to appease tests feel weak. Weakness feels unsafe. The middle ground is emotional sovereignty. Not needing to win, not needing to please, just remaining intact. Another deep psychological insight is this. A woman's nervous system is far more sensitive to incongruence than to mistakes. You can say the wrong thing and still pass, but if your inner state contradicts your outer behavior, you fail. Performance collapses under pressure. Presence does not. Another uncomfortable truth is that silence often passes tests better than words. Silence signals comfort with tension. Comfort with tension signals strength. Strength reduces fear. This is why men who talk less during tests often pass without realizing it. Another layer is timing. Tests often come right after positive moments, right after laughter, right after intimacy, right after closeness. This confuses men. They think something went wrong. Nothing did. Closeness simply triggered evaluation. Will this man now seek security, or will he remain grounded? Another uncomfortable realization is that women test men who matter. Men who don't matter are ignored. Testing is a tension with stakes. This reframes everything. Instead of feeling attacked, you understand you're being considered. Another deep truth is that tests escalate when men chase certainty. Certainty is not safety. Self-trust is safety. Men who need certainty ask questions. Men who trust themselves do not. Another uncomfortable truth is that emotional humor passes tests better than seriousness. Seriousness feels rigid. Rigidity feels fragile. Lightness signals flexibility. Flexibility signals strength. This is why men who can stay playful under pressure often pass effortlessly. Another layer is emotional patience. Tests are moments of pause. Men who rush through them fail. Men who sit inside them pass. Another truth most men never hear is this: you cannot pass a test by trying to pass it. Trying reveals fear. Fear fails the test. The only way to pass is to not experience it as a test at all. This is why self-trust is the real solution. If you trust yourself, you don't need to prove anything. If you don't need to prove anything, there's nothing to fail. Another uncomfortable realization is that women test more when men hide their true reactions. Suppression creates tension. Tension invites probing. Men who are emotionally honest but regulated get tested less, because authenticity feels stable. Another deep insight is that women test men to see how they handle power shifts. Attention is power. When attention fluctuates, power shifts. Men who panic reveal dependence. Men who remain calm reveal autonomy. Autonomy is attractive. Another uncomfortable truth is that passing tests does not increase attraction dramatically. It removes resistance, and removing resistance is what allows attraction to deepen naturally. Another layer is emotional responsibility. Men who pass tests take responsibility for their internal state. Men who fail blame the woman. Blame signals loss of control. Loss of control fails every test. Another realization is that tests are not challenges to your masculinity. They are invitations to demonstrate emotional leadership. Leadership here means you are not pulled by every emotional wave. You remain steady. Another deep truth is this: once a woman sees that you do not collapse under pressure, tests decrease. Not because she trusts you fully yet, but because her nervous system has less reason to question you. Another uncomfortable realization is that most men fail the same test repeatedly because they keep reacting the same way, and reaction is what the test is measuring. Once you remove reaction, the test dissolves. Another truth is that women test men who are close to passing a threshold, not men who are far away. Testing happens near doors, not walls. This is why tests feel sudden. They appear right before progression. Another deep insight is that tests are neutral. They only become negative when you interpret them as threats. Threat interpretation changes your behavior. Behavior reveals your position. Position determines attraction. Once you understand this, the dynamic shifts completely. You stop defending yourself. You stop chasing approval. You stop trying to say the perfect thing, and you start doing the one thing that passes every test. You stay centered. You stay calm. You stay yourself. And that is the only signal her nervous system needs. Because the man who can stay grounded under pressure is the man she can relax around. And relaxed attraction is the only attraction that lasts. This is where tests stop feeling like obstacles and start feeling like confirmations. Confirmations that you are not losing yourself, that you are not negotiating your worth, that you are not outsourcing your stability. And when that becomes true, the tests don't need to continue, because the answer has already been given. As you start passing tests consistently, something subtle shifts in the dynamic. The tests become quieter, not because she stopped testing, but because her nervous system is receiving the answer it needs. Most men think passing a test means impressing her. In reality, passing a test means not changing your internal state. That's the part almost no one understands. A woman does not watch what you do during a test. She watches what happens inside you. Your breathing, your pacing, your tone, your emotional speed. These are signals far more honest than words. Another uncomfortable truth is this. The most common test women use is emotional withdrawal. Less texts, less warmth, less engagement. Most men panic here. They chase, they ask questions, they try to fix it. And by doing so, they fail instantly. Because withdrawal is testing one thing. Can this man remain stable without my attention? The man who passes does not punish the withdrawal. He does not chase it. He simply continues his life unchanged. Not cold, not distant, just unaffected. That unaffectedness is felt immediately. Another deep insight is that women test men when they feel attraction rising faster than trust. Attraction pulls forward, fear pulls back. Tests are the compromise between the two. They slow things down to observe you. Men who understand this stop taking tests personally. They stop emotionalizing them, and once emotion is removed, clarity appears. Another uncomfortable realization is that many tests are subtle. A comment like, "You're different from what I expected," or "You're too confident," or "I don't usually like guys like you." These are not statements, they are probes. They are checking if you will explain, defend, or adjust. Any adjustment signals insecurity. The man who passes does not correct her perception, he lets it exist, because he does not need to be perceived correctly to remain centered. Another truth is this: women test men to see if their boundaries are real. Boundaries spoken are cheap. Boundaries demonstrated under pressure are rare. If you say you value respect but tolerate disrespect during a test, you fail. If you react aggressively, you fail. Passing means responding calmly and changing behavior if needed, without explanation or drama. Another uncomfortable truth is that women test men when men overinvest. Overinvestment creates imbalance. Imbalance triggers correction. Tests are that correction. Men who pull back slightly and calmly restore balance. Men who double down collapse it. Another deep psychological insight is this: women test men to see how they handle loss of control. Control over the pace, control over attention, control over outcomes. Men who need control panic. Men who trust themselves adapt. Adaptability signals strength. Another layer most men never notice is that tests often repeat in different forms, not because she forgot the answer, but because she wants consistency. One pass does not guarantee stability. Consistency over time does. This is why men who pass one test but fail the next confuse women. Inconsistency feels dangerous. Another uncomfortable realization is that many tests are subtle. A comment like, "You're different from what I expected," or "You're too confident," or "I don't usually like guys like you." These are not statements, they are probes. They are checking if you will explain, defend, or adjust. Any adjustment signal insecurity. The man who passes does not correct her perception, he lets it exist, because he does not need to be perceived correctly to remain centered. Another truth is this: women test men to see if their boundaries are real. Boundaries spoken are cheap. Boundaries demonstrated under pressure are rare. If you say you value respect but tolerate disrespect during a test, you fail. If you react aggressively, you fail. Passing means responding calmly and changing behavior if needed, without explanation or drama. Another uncomfortable truth is that women test men when men overinvest. Overinvestment creates imbalance. Imbalance triggers correction. Tests are that correction. Men who pull back slightly and calmly restore balance. Men who double down collapse it. Another deep psychological insight is this: women test men to see how they handle loss of control. Control over the pace, control over attention, control over outcomes. Men who need control panic. Men who trust themselves adapt. Adaptability signals strength. Another layer most men never notice is that tests often repeat in different forms, not because she forgot the answer, but because she wants consistency. One pass does not guarantee stability. Consistency over time does. This is why men who pass one test but fail the next confuse women. Inconsistency feels dangerous. Another uncomfortable realization is that many tests are subtle. A comment like, "Passing tests requires emotional humility," not arrogance, not dominance. Humility rooted in self-trust. The man who does not need to win every moment passes. The man who does not need to be right passes. Another truth is this: tests are not moments to assert power. They are moments to withhold reaction. Withholding reaction is power. Another deep insight is that women test men more when men are emotionally intense. Intensity without grounding feels unsafe. Grounded intensity feels attractive. The difference is regulation. Another uncomfortable realization is that men who fear losing women fail tests faster than men who accept loss. Acceptance of loss removes fear. Fear is what tests are looking for. Another truth most men never hear is this: the fastest way to fail a test is to ask, "What's wrong?" That question shifts the emotional burden onto her. Burden triggers withdrawal. The man who passes allows space without interrogation. Another deep insight is that women test men when they feel themselves losing emotional control. If she feels herself leaning too much, she will test you. Not to push you away, but to see if you will pull her back or stay grounded. Pulling her back fails. Staying grounded passes. Another uncomfortable realization is that tests are not about dominance, they are about containment. Can you contain your emotions? Can you contain the moment? Can you contain uncertainty? Containment feels safe. Safety allows attraction to continue. Another truth is this: men who pass tests do not label them. They don't say, "She's testing me." They simply behave as if nothing unusual is happening, because to them, nothing is. This neutrality is the strongest signal of all. Another deep insight is that women stop testing men who make them feel emotionally predictable. Predictable in values, unpredictable in neediness. The man who does not need validation becomes predictable in the best way. Another uncomfortable realization is that tests increase when men hide desire. Suppressed desire leaks as tension. Tension invites probing. Men who allow desire without attachment get tested less. Another truth is this: tests are not about pushing you away. They're about seeing if you will push yourself away. The man who abandons himself fails. The man who stays himself passes. Another deep realization is that passing tests does not mean attraction explodes. It means attraction stabilizes. Stability is what allows deeper desire to form. Without stability, attraction burns out. Another uncomfortable truth is that men who seek formulas always fail tests, because formulas are reactions. Presence is not. The man who is present does not need a strategy. Another insight is that tests are invitations to demonstrate inner order. Inner order cannot be faked. It can only be lived. This is why passing tests changes how women look at you. Not consciously, but instinctively. Their nervous system stops bracing, and when bracing stops, attraction can flow. This is the shift. The moment tests stop feeling threatening and start feeling irrelevant, because you are no longer trying to pass. You're simply remaining whole. And wholeness is the answer every test is looking for. This is where men stop fearing female behavior and start understanding it. And when understanding replaces fear, confidence becomes natural. Not performant, not forced, just present. And there is still one final layer to this that most men never see. At this point, the tests change in nature. They become less obvious, less confrontational, and far more revealing. This is where many men get careless, because once tests feel softer, men relax their center, and the moment the center softens, tests return. Not louder, deeper. Another uncomfortable truth is this: the most important tests are not dramatic. They are quiet invitations to abandon yourself. Moments where you're tempted to over-give, moments where you're tempted to over-explain, moments where you're tempted to prioritize her emotions over your own integrity. These tests don't feel like pressure, they feel like opportunity, and that's why they're dangerous. Another deep insight is this: women test men by watching how they handle comfort. Comfort reveals character faster than conflict. When things feel easy, men often lose discipline. They stop holding boundaries. They start tolerating things they wouldn't normally accept. And tolerance without choice signals weakness. Weakness reactivates fear. Another uncomfortable realization is that tests often appear as requests. Requests for reassurance, requests for flexibility, requests for emotional accommodation. None of these are wrong, but how you respond matters. If you comply out of fear, you fail. If you refuse out of ego, you fail. Passing means responding from alignment, not from reaction. Another deep truth is this: women test men by observing whether their standards remain intact under affection. Affection is a powerful destabilizer. It makes men want to secure. Security-seeking collapses position. The man who remains steady under affection passes. Another uncomfortable realization is that many tests are passive. Silence, delayed responses, emotional flatness. These are not punishments, they are observations. The question being asked is simple: will he fill the gap? Men who rush to fill silence fail. Men who allow silence pass. Another deep insight is that women test men by pulling back slightly to see if he follows. Following signals dependence. Staying put signals sovereignty. Sovereignty is attractive. Another uncomfortable truth is that tests increase when men verbalize their self-worth. Statements like, "I'm a good guy," "I would never treat you badly," "I'm not like other men." These statements invite scrutiny because true value does not announce itself. The man who lives his value is not tested as hard. Another layer is emotional calibration. Women test men to see if they can calibrate without overcorrecting. Small emotional shifts do not require big responses. Men who overreact fail. Men who adjust minimally pass. Another uncomfortable realization is that tests reveal whether a man trusts his own judgment. Men who second-guess themselves ask for validation. Validation-seeking fails tests instantly. Men who trust themselves move naturally. Another deep truth is this: Women test men by observing whether their standards remain intact under affection. Affection is a powerful destabilizer. It makes men want to secure. Security-seeking collapses position. The man who remains steady under affection passes. Another uncomfortable realization is that many tests are passive. Silence, delayed responses, emotional flatness. These are not punishments, they are observations. The question being asked is simple: will he fill the gap? Men who rush to fill silence fail. Men who allow silence pass. Another deep insight is that women test men by pulling back slightly to see if he follows. Following signals dependence. Staying put signals sovereignty. Sovereignty is attractive. Another uncomfortable truth is that tests increase when men verbalize their self-worth. Statements like, "I'm a good guy," "I would never treat you badly," "I'm not like other men." These statements invite scrutiny because true value does not announce itself. The man who lives his value is not tested as hard. Another layer is emotional calibration. Women test men to see if they can calibrate without overcorrecting. Small emotional shifts do not require big responses. Men who overreact fail. Men who adjust minimally pass. Another uncomfortable realization is that tests reveal whether a man trusts his own judgment. Men who second-guess themselves ask for validation. Validation-seeking fails tests instantly. Men who trust themselves move naturally. Another deep truth is this: women test men by observing whether their standards remain intact under affection. Affection is not a contract. Entitlement triggers resistance. The man who enjoys attraction without claiming it passes. Another uncomfortable realization is that tests happen when men project outcomes. Projecting futures, projecting meanings, projecting commitments. Projection creates pressure. Pressure revives fear. Men who stay present pass. Another deep insight is that women test men by watching how they handle minor disappointments. Disappointment reveals entitlement. Entitlement feels unsafe. The man who handles disappointment with grace signals maturity. Another uncomfortable truth is that tests often appear as emotional vulnerability from her. Sharing fears, sharing doubts, sharing confusion. Men who rush to fix fail. Men who listen without absorbing pass. Containment is the answer. Another layer is emotional independence. Women test men to see if they can exist without constant emotional exchange. Men who need constant engagement fail. Men who are fine without it pass. Another uncomfortable realization is that women test men by observing whether he sacrifices long-term self-respect for short-term closeness. Short-term gain that costs integrity always fails. Integrity is felt. Another deep insight is this: women test men to see if their calm is conditional. Conditional calm collapses under stress. Unconditional calm feels safe. Another uncomfortable truth is that men often think tests end. They don't. They evolve. Because the question never changes. Will this man remain himself, or will he abandon himself? Every test is asking this in a new way. Another realization is that tests are not obstacles to attraction, they are filters. Filters remove men who cannot hold themselves. Men who pass do not feel triumphant, they feel unchanged, because they never left their center. Another deep truth is this: passing tests is not about doing something right, it's about not doing something wrong. Not reacting from fear, not negotiating your values, not outsourcing your stability. Another uncomfortable realization is that most men fail tests when they start thinking they've already passed. Complacency reveals entitlement. Entitlement reactivates fear. Another layer is emotional humility. Men who stay humble without shrinking pass. Men who inflate fail. Another deep insight is that women test men to see if they can be close without being consumed. Consumption feels unsafe. Presence feels grounding. Another uncomfortable truth is that tests are not solved once, they are lived through repeatedly. Consistency is what ends them. Another realization is that once tests reduce, traction deepens naturally. Not because she is convinced, but because her nervous system relaxes. Relaxation allows desire. This is the point most men never reach, because it requires discipline during comfort, not effort during conflict. And discipline during comfort is rare. This is where men separate, not by charisma, not by dominance, but by self-command. And when self-command becomes natural, tests stop feeling like tests. They feel like moments. Moments you move through without losing yourself. And that is the signal every nervous system recognizes, that you are safe, that you are solid, that you are not collapsing. And that is when attraction no longer needs to check, because the answer has become consistent. And there is one final piece that completes this understanding. At the deepest level, this is why tests exist at all. Not to challenge you, not to control you, but to answer a single question the nervous system cannot ignore. Will this man remain solid when nothing is guaranteed? That's it. Every test, no matter how subtle or dramatic, is asking that one thing. And once the answer becomes consistent, the tests lose their purpose. Most men believe the goal is to pass tests. It's not. The goal is to become the kind of man who doesn't trigger them anymore, because tests only appear when uncertainty exists, and uncertainty disappears around men who are emotionally sovereign. Another uncomfortable truth is this: the man who passes tests does not feel powerful. He feels unchanged. He doesn't spike when things go well. He doesn't sink when things feel off. His internal state remains steady. That steadiness becomes the reference point, and reference points calm the nervous system. Calm allows attraction to deepen without resistance. Another realization is that passing tests never required you to say the right thing. They required you to feel the right way. Calm, grounded, unthreatened, unmoved. When you feel that way genuinely, your words no longer matter much, because your presence answers the question before your mouth ever opens. Another uncomfortable truth is that men fail tests the moment they make the interaction about winning. Winning reveals insecurity. Security never tries to win. It simply exists. Another deep insight is this: women do not stop testing because you impressed them. They stop testing because they trust you won't abandon yourself. That trust is rare, and rarity attracts. Another uncomfortable realization is that passing tests does not make women chase harder. It makes them relax. And relaxed attraction is the only attraction that lasts. Chasing fades. Relaxed desire deepens. Another deep truth is that the one way to pass every test is not dominance, humor, indifference, or confidence. It is emotional self-trust. Trust that you will be okay regardless of outcome. Trust that you don't need approval to remain whole. Trust that you don't need to fix, chase, or prove anything. When that trust is real, tests dissolve naturally. Another uncomfortable truth is that most men fail tests because they fear losing women. Men who accept loss do not fear it, and fearlessness is felt immediately. Another realization is that tests are not enemies. They're mirrors. They reflect where you are still attached, where you still seek validation, where you still outsource stability. And once those attachments disappear, the mirror has nothing to show. Another deep insight is this: the man who passes tests consistently is not more confident. He is less dependent on reaction, less dependent on reassurance, less dependent on outcome. And that independence is the most attractive signal there is. Another uncomfortable truth is that once tests stop, attraction doesn't explode. It settles, it stabilizes, it becomes quiet and deep. This is where relationships stop feeling volatile and start feeling grounded. Another realization is that women don't want men who can handle tests. They want men who don't need to. Men whose emotional state does not hinge on approval. Men whose identity does not fluctuate with attention. Men who remain themselves regardless of pressure. This is why tests feel so important. because they reveal whether you are leading yourself. And only men who lead themselves can be followed emotionally. Now, if this video helped you finally understand how women test men and why most men fail without realizing it, there is one video you should watch next, because tests exist for a reason. They are rooted in a deeper fear that shapes attraction before obsession can even form. That's exactly what I break down in my video called "The Hidden Fear All Women Have and How Men Can Use It." That video explains what women are actually protecting themselves from, why emotional collapse repels attraction, and how self-mastery removes resistance completely. Watch that next. Because once you understand both the fear behind tests and the calm that passes them, attraction stops feeling unpredictable. It becomes a natural response to who you are, not what you say, not what you do, but how solid you remain when nothing is guaranteed. That is the one way to pass every test, every time.